I would like to call to order the council meeting for Wednesday, November 6th of 2019. If we could all please stand for a moment of silence in the Pledge of Allegiance. Madam Secretary, may I please have roll call? Here. Would a member of council like to make a motion to approve the minute meetings?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or revisions? Seeing none, the meeting minutes are approved and passed. Earlier this evening, we had an executive session pertaining to personnel. The next order of business we have are the announcements, and the announcements will be done by Councilman Jones this evening.
Good evening. Municipal Hall will be closed on Monday, November 11th for Veterans Day. Also, leaf collection is underway. So Public Works will be using the street sweeping schedule for your block. Also, there will be free compost available to residents. You must bring your own buckets. Pickup for the compost is behind the basketball courts at Elmwood Park. Norristown Recreation is offering youth basketball programming in January. You can sign up online at norristown.org, or you can email recreation@norristown.org. Please be advised that the Norristown Sewer Authority is relocating their offices to 25 East Marshall Street on December 9th. Once again, leaf collection will take place October 21st through December 9th. Winter sports youth leagues will also take place in the municipality. Youth winter basketball, ages 5 through 12 years old, will begin January 7th, 2020 through February 13th, 2020. You can register by emailing recreation@norristown.org or calling 610-272-8080. A few more announcements. The Office of Children and Youth is hosting a Toys for Tree Winter Festival. All are welcome. If you take a unwrapped toy to 3770 Ridge Pike in Collegeville, you can walk away with a Christmas tree. And that is Saturday, December 7th, starting at 9 a.m., ending at 3:30 p.m. There is also a Veterans Photo ID discount card event on November 13th, 2019 from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. That will be located at Representative Matt Bradford's office on 750 East Johnson Highway in Norristown. The event is hosted by the Recorder of Deeds. Does any other council reps have any announcements? Councilwoman Scott Cooper.
The Help a Single Parent Foundation will be sponsoring their annual fundraiser on Saturday, December the 7th, from 7 p.m. to midnight at the Cedar Club on 810 West Germantown Pike in Norristown. Tickets are $25. There will be raffles there, and all the proceeds will go to helping single parents and their children at Christmas time. You can either see myself or President Sanders for tickets.
Council President Sanders.
Yes, in terms of the election, I'd like to say congratulations to Councilman Jones for being reelected. Congratulations are also in order for Councilwoman Lewis in the second district for being reelected, and our newly elected in January is Tommy LaPera, who's in the in the audience this evening. So thank you.
Any other announcements from council? Before we move on, I had one more announcement that I missed. So November 17th, the historic Ebenezer Methodist Church invites you to the birthday pastoral appreciation banquet for Archbishop Pastor Albert Jarman Sr. The event will take place at the Norristown Cedar Club, 810 West Germantown Pike in Norristown. That event is November 17th from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. You can contact Pat Milligan at 484-213-5257 for details. That includes the announcements.
Thank you, Councilman Jones. Next order of business we have will be Resolution 19-153 for the appointments to the citizen boards and committees. I'm sorry. I am way ahead of myself since we have a short agenda. Madam Secretary, do we have public comments this evening?
I still don't see names on here. Where did you sign up?
On the left up here.
Oh, gee, okay. Really tiny, I see it.
Yeah, right here. Yes.
I think I can read it. Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry about that.
Come on up. You all right? Come on, sir. Should I speak at the podium here? Yes, sir. Okay.
Can you say your name?
Yes. I'm Dennis Ray with JF Gale Inc. Thank you for letting me speak here. We were bidders, or are bidders, on the 500, 600, 700 Washington Street project. And I just wanted to, and our bids were rejected, by the way, as well as all bids, all two bids. But I just wanted to make sure you were aware of some of the aspects of our bid. And that is, we had a pretty ambitious project with 3 large towers, 10-story and 15-story towers, that would meet the zoning requirements that were laid out in the Gateway Development Project. However, we had conditions put on this that we needed some things done for this project to proceed, including the slip ramp, train to King of Prussia, and so forth. But what I'm really here for is to tell you about the first phase that we would propose before that project till those developments occurred. This was a recycling center to be operated by Whitetail Disposal, a Montgomery County firm that pays very well, bringing in 200 jobs, good paying blue collar jobs, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year. That's just for the sorters and drivers. Supervisors and mechanics would be $85,000 a year. They include health care and medical and dental. So I just wanted to make sure you were aware of that, because I don't think that got through. And we think it's an excellent proposal for Norristown. It'll provide the interim infrastructure to help build that so we can get to the large, ambitious project that we propose when the things occur that would cause the development to move forward. So I just wanted you to know that. That's basically it.
So if I may, since this is public comment, so it's not a question and answer, but with all due respect and fairness, I think it would be appropriate. You have some information there, and I don't think you could relay all of that information in 3 minutes, so I think it would be well worth an agenda item going forward for council.
For the next meeting?
Our next meeting is the workshop session, and what can happen is if you have a card, we can have someone contact you just to confirm if you will be on the agenda or not.
Okay.
In all fairness, okay?
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So there's 2 names here, so just one of you was speaking.
Was going to address the issue of why the
If you could
high-rise
just state your name
development,
so that
Jonathan Gale. I'm the president and sole shareholder of JF Gale Inc. I was going to address the issue of why the high-rise development is not feasible as a first step. I can present that when we're called to actually be on the agenda if you like, or I can address it now, whichever you prefer.
All right. As I mentioned earlier, we'll just have someone contact you and let you know whether or not you'll be on the agenda,
Madam President.
with all fairness and respect. Thank you, Madam Secretary. So again, back to our agenda. We have Resolution 19-153 for the appointments to the Citizen Board and Committee. Mr. Jones, could you lead us into a brief summary, please?
Thank you, Madam President. Council, you have before you Resolution 19-153 for an appointment. This appointment is to the Civil Service Commission. You're actually down actually two members, but one of those members is a permanent full member, and the second one now is an alternate. This resolution is a request to council to appoint Terry Butler, who has served as the alternate and done an exceptional job at serving as an alternate, and really excited about becoming a full-time member of the commission, has attended every meeting as an alternate since her service. So this resolution would appoint her with a term to expire December 31st, 2026, beginning in January.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Council, any questions or comments? Would a member of the council like to make a motion to appoint Terry Butler to the Civil Service Commission? Madam Secretary, may I please have roll call?
Jones? Aye. Derek Perry? Aye. Rebecca Smith? Aye. Jody Sanders?
Aye. The ayes have it, and that resolution is passed and approved. Next order of business we have is for finance. Mr. Butts.
Thank you, Madam President, members of council. Good evening. The ordinance you have before you authorizes the issuance of $950,000 in notes through the Delaware Valley Finance Authority to upgrade our roughly 2,000 streetlights from high-pressure sodium to LED. We've talked about this project several times over the last year. There is one wrinkle, though, that I do want to mention to council. Previously, we had indicated that we felt that the entire debt service of the project could be paid out of liquid fuels funds. That was after we had a conversation with the local rep from PennDOT. We've learned since then that someone higher up in the PennDOT organization may have overruled that, and we may have to pay up to $32,000 from general funds for this. I will say that if that's the case, the savings through the recent electricity contract, four-year contract that we entered into, the savings for the general fund are about $40,000 a year, so that will cover any expenditures that we might have to pay out of the general fund. We'll know more as we get to closing on the note, and certainly let you know what PennDOT finally says.
Council, any questions? Councilwoman Brady.
Yeah, just a clarification on this. So are we actually borrowing a note which is going to require bond counsel to do it, or is this just like a finance deal for the project?
It's a note issued through the Delaware Valley Finance Authority. There is legal counsel involved. Obviously, our local solicitor opines on certain aspects of the borrowing, and I believe that Delaware Valley Finance Authority also has legal counsel. So the lawyers are represented in the deal.
And the other municipalities that are also doing this project, are they doing the financing in the same way?
Some of the municipalities are using alternative financing structures through their own borrowing outside of Del Val, and I'm told that some of the municipalities have cash reserves set aside for the program.
Thank you.
Perry?
My only question is with this borrowing that we're allegedly doing, does it include the enhancements of some of the lights that we as a council had talked about if we went, this route?
Well, there is in addition to the actual LED installation on each of the roughly 2,000 light fixtures, there is an upgrade so that we have a system that will allow us to control the lights from a computer. It's an upgrade from just a standalone item on each light that would be set to come on and off in the evening and go off in the day time. We'll be able to, with the enhanced controls, make the lights brighter or dimmer in all of the locations. And there's also, we didn't opt to do this, but there's also an option later on to put on individual poles fixtures that would allow smart devices to be put on later. We did not opt to do that at this time, but that is available. That will be available.
Yeah, that's what I was speaking in regards to, when, I had spoke about public safety and how this can enhance and make the police force a little bit, help them out with some of the things that, goes on in town in certain areas. I'm hoping that we, this payment goes with the enhancements of those kinds of projects, because it will be a disservice if we go ahead and borrow this money and we don't get the lights that we deserve or the poles and help the police department, do what they need to do.
That's a good point, and we have had discussions with Chief Talbot on some of the enhancements that are available. We're not electing to get into any of those enhancements at the present time. I understand that the item that would be placed on the light fixtures for the enhanced upgrade will cost about $4,000 a piece. And obviously you wouldn't put them all on all 2,000 light fixtures, but you'd put them on locations where you felt they would do the most good. And not only do they have currently sound detection capability, but also can do traffic counts and so on. So there's more technology coming out all the time in terms of the smart city type of issues. We've opted not to go into that at this time, but to make the system available for that and to have the control system that will allow for the control of this. Now the system, the controls that will be in this system would allow for individual lights to be raised or lowered, so that if we get complaints from a neighborhood that it's too bright, you can dim the lights, so to speak. If there isn't enough, if the complaint is there isn't enough light, you can to a certain extent turn the lights up. So it does have that control, and as I say, it can be controlled from a central point to all of the 2,000 locations.
So I have a question. So does it make sense for us to make a decision tonight, or should we opt to wait for PennDOT to make their decision? So that could be a question to the solicitor as well.
Well, if I could, and the solicitor certainly can follow up on this, in my discussions with Lucian Calhoun at Del Val, if council passes the ordinance tonight, it's been advertised, and the advertisement was somewhere between $1,000 and $1,200 just for the advertisement. So if you don't act tonight, we'd have to re-advertise at a later date. If you act tonight, the closing will not happen for at least 30 days because you need DCED approval. So until we actually closed, you'd have the opportunity to revisit and not borrow any money. So this doesn't actually borrow the money, it just authorizes us to move forward to the closing, which, as I say, you would have the another option if you wanted to revisit it and decide not to go forward. Will certainly be, we cannot make the application, unfortunately, to PennDOT until after we have the DCED approval. So it's, you know, it's a bit awkward in that sense. You have to have the approval from DCED to enter into the, to issue the debt, and then we have to make a separate application to PennDOT to ask for payment of liquid fuels funds for the debt service.
Thank you, Mr. Butts, for that clarification. Mr. Solicitor, did you have anything to add to that?
I would just reiterate what Mr. Butts mentioned, that if council would decide to pass or table this item for tonight, legally you would just have to re-advertise the ordinance at that, whatever the cost would be for running the newspaper ad to advertise when the vote would occur. So that would be the only legal requirements. I would also agree with Mr. Butts that the ordinance is authorizing the municipality to enter into the agreement and to the relevant documentation. Obviously, the closing date is when it is. So I guess if council decided to, let's say, rescind or revoke the ordinance at a subsequent meeting, they theoretically could do so. But again, keep in mind, if there is no such revocation or rescission by council after they've passed the ordinance, it will just proceed forward to a closing date. So if you were to approve the ordinance tonight, essentially everything would continue to move forward to a closing unless for some reason between now and the closing date, this body would decide at a public meeting to direct by a vote not to proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Solicitor, for the additional clarification. Councilman Jones?
Mr. Butts, I would just ask that you kind of elaborate a little more. Again, $950,000 does seem like it is a lot of money, but when you mention liquid fuels and only having a liability of $32,000, is the liquid fuels funding a guarantee, and is that something that's going to take majority of that $950,000 fee?
We had anticipated initially after our previous conversations with PennDOT that almost all of the approximately $97,000 a year in debt service for the $950,000 note be financed over 11 years at an interest rate of about 1.52%. When we had the discussion a few days ago and found out that PennDOT was perhaps not going to allow the entire $97,000 a year debt service from liquid fuels funds, that we'd have to probably pay upwards of $32,000 of that $97,000 from general fund. And that's where I mentioned that if we had to do that, per year, that's right. If we had to do that, then the savings and the electricity costs would offset the $32,000. But obviously, we'd like to get as much of liquid fuels funds as we could to pay for this, pay for the debt service. Now, I will also mention that currently, PennDOT is allowing us to pay about $250,000 a year in electricity costs for the system that we have. And what our discussion with PennDOT previously, we pointed out that with the enhanced system, all in, with the electricity costs and the debt service would be about $250,000. Obviously, you have to light the 2,000 fixtures, and then have to pay the debt service. So it was really a wash at that point, and we were hopeful that PennDOT would let us proceed because there would be no additional use of liquid fuels funds.
Councilman Perry?
I just wanted for you to repeat that one more time. So before we voted, so you're saying there would be no enhancements in certain areas, but we're using just these funds just to have the LED lights just through all of town, and that's it? No enhancements?
Well, the enhancement, that isn't correct. If there is for approximately $700,000, we could have just the LED lights themselves placed on 2,000 poles. The additional money is for the enhanced control system that would allow us to operate each one of the lights separately, raise and lower the intensity of the lights and so on, and to allow for future application of the smart city apps, if you will. So I hope that answers your question. So it's not just the lights that we're paying for the $950. We're paying for the lights and an enhanced control system.
So, and why I'm saying what I'm saying is at a later date. So you're saying at a later date, or that we can get the enhancements if we wanted to, the police department to have enhancements on some of the lights, or is that already part of this? The enhancements is just to turn up and turn down the lights, correct?
To turn up and turn down all 2,000 lights individually, that is correct, and to allow for the additional application of the smart city app, if you will, so that without the enhancement of the control system, you couldn't put the smart city applications on any of the poles. You'd have to have the system at that point to do that. And with the enhancements that we talked about, the further enhancements, if you will, over the control system, one of the things that we talked about with respect to public safety was the ability to pick a part of the town where maybe you wanted to have the ability to record where loud noises were coming from, gunshots, for example. But in order to do that, you would have to pick the 2 or 3 or 4 poles in the area that you wanted the enhancement to be put on in order to record that and triangulate and get the exact location where the sound was coming from. So you're not gonna pay $4,000 for that type of enhancement on each of the 2,000 poles. You're gonna at some point, if there were a neighborhood that needed those enhancements, you'd put them on at that time, at that additional cost.
Thank you, Mr. Butts. Councilwoman Scott Cooper.
So I just want to kind of elaborate a little bit more on the enhancements and the smart cities and all of that. And correct me if I'm wrong, we are so outdated that we need to do something. Am I correct?
Well, we have the high pressure sodium lights that we have now are not as efficient, not nearly as efficient as the LED lights. So just the efficiency alone of the LED upgrade is important. You can get more lumens from a lower wattage LED than you can from a high pressure sodium. So the system that we have now is certainly not state of the art. It's
Okay, so when comparing this to what we would like to do eventually, going down the road of smart cities, then what we're doing now is almost like a stepping stone, because we can actually enhance what we're getting to, even though it's going to cost us more money, but we're not ready for smart cities anyway. But that enhancement would help us to move towards being smart cities. Is that correct?
I think that's correct. It does take us a level above what we have now, and it gives us the opportunity to go a level above that. And you can't even, I mean, two of the smart city applications that I'm familiar with now is the noise, the ability to pinpoint noises, and the ability to put them in intersections to do traffic counts. But the apps, I mean, there are apps out there that haven't even been thought of yet. Who knows what it's going to turn out to be? I don't have any idea of that. But if we don't have the system with the enhanced controls on it, then we'd have to go back and retrofit that. And obviously, there's a cost with that. So it does take us to the level where we're poised to do more, but it's going to cost to do more as well.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Jones?
Thank you, Madam President. I sense that there certainly is a desire, and I know that there was conversation among council about having the enhancements. I think the thing that we keep in mind, and we certainly can add those, because we're not talking about a full system enhancement. We're not talking about $2,000 worth of poles. I think one of the things we keep in mind is this, that it is a significant upgrade in the lighting system now. It does give us that platform to add whatever other enhancements that council wants to do. And if some of those enhancements council wants to happen next year, council will have every opportunity to add them, because there are modules to add to selected poles next year. I think one of the other important things about this is we know we're like one of 32 communities that are in this queue to get the installation started. So if we delay, we're going to delay getting us in the queue to get the installation started. It also is going to give us enough time now to give the police chief an opportunity to kind of look at the system. And then during the course of 2020, come to council with, here's where we think we want to do these enhancements, and make a proposal in 2020 to make whatever additional enhancements that happen then. So it won't be nearly the kind of purchase that you're talking about now in terms of additional costs. It doesn't sound like, since you're going to be talking about a few targeted poles here and there. So I think the prudent thing, as I see it, is to get in the queue, because this is really an important project for the community, an important project for the council. Chief and the lighting folks in us will all get together and figure out what it specifically he needs, and we can bring that information back to council, bring that cost back to council, and then council can program that subsequently to getting us in the queue to get the enhancement. Then it comes out.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Chief Talbot, do you have anything to add to the discussion at this time, or you would rather wait?
I have been in discussions with Norm and Crandall about this whole thing, so they have looped me in. So I've been paying attention as to, what would be best for us when it's time to go for the upgrades. I think we're proceeding in the way that makes the most sense in terms of how it would fit into our strategy.
Thank you, Chief Talbot. Council, any other questions? Councilwoman Smith?
Yes, so I think it's great that the system is going to have the opportunity for us to upgrade at some point, but I'd just like to recall from last month, a month and a half ago, when Delva was here presenting and we asked all these questions about the smart system, they really said nobody is choosing to opt for it right now, hardly anybody. They had no answers on how well it actually works in place. They didn't know about the longevity of the system. So right now, I think it's great that we can in the future upgrade, but I'd be curious long-term to see how it actually is playing out in communities, because nobody really had those answers a month and a half ago. So just to recall that discussion as well.
Councilwoman Brady?
I think the LED lighting really provides an opportunity for us to serve our constituents regardless, despite the cost. We've been getting a lot of complaints about lights not being bright enough, that just the dull lights in areas that are prone to crime are continuing with the because people want to see what's going on. So I think we are doing our community a disservice by not going with this particular plan, upgrading the lights, and then at a future point getting some of those additional enhancements that can make the community safer. My only question about this whole thing is maintenance. If there's a situation where sometimes now I think there are people who have been shooting out lights or damaging lights if they're out in areas, what happens in cases in areas such that if a particular light is damaged and is not usable? Does this DVOC allow for a particular kind of repair on these? And how much of an impact is it going to be to fix that from a financial aspect?
Very good questions. What we're told is that, well, first of all, the system has some guarantees for the first year. And also, when an individual light goes out because of the enhanced controls, you're notified of the location and where the light is. We're also told that maintenance is much less costly in terms of maintenance of the system. It doesn't require nearly as much maintenance as the current system requires. So we were, for example, going to reduce the maintenance line item in the general fund budget for streetlights significantly.
Thank you, Mr. Butts. Does that conclude all of the questions? Would a member of council like to make a motion to approve an ordinance to borrow up to $950,000 to pay for the upgrading of the municipality street lighting system to LED? Madam Secretary, may I please have roll call?
Libby Brady. Valerie Scott Cooper. Hakeem Jones. Derek Perry. Rebecca Smith. Tony Sanders.
Aye. The ayes have it. That resolution is passed and approved. Next order of business we have is the resolution for 19-152, handicap parking. Chief Talbot.
Thank you, Madam President. Resolution 19-152, I'm requesting council consider a motion to approve this resolution for the designation of 3 disabled parking spaces. The locations are 216 East Fornan Street, 651 East Basin Street, and 1109 Beach Street. The residents at each location have demonstrated that they have limitations making these accommodations necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Talbot.
You're welcome.
Council, any questions? Seeing none, would a member of council like to make a motion to approve the following addresses: 216 East Fernand Street, 651 East Basin Street, 1109 Beach Street, for handicap parking?
Second.
Madam Secretary, may I please have roll call?
Libby Brady. Valerie Scott Cooper. Hakeem Jones. Derek Perry. Rebecca Smith. Tony Sanders.
Aye. The ayes have it. That motion is passed and approved. Would a member of council like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. The ayes have it. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.